So today we're going to extract some lessons from a gangster negotiation from Peaky Blinders. Hi, I'm Bob Bordone. I'm a senior fellow at Harvard Law School and the founder and former director of Harvard's Negotiation and Mediation Clinical Program. I'm also the founder and a principal at the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. So what can we learn from negotiation from some Birmingham gangsters and some corrupt cops?
I chose this place because it is outside both of our jurisdictions. Do you want tea?
Okay, we're only 2 sentences in. We have basically a declarative sentence and a question, but we have something to learn. First, choice of venue actually matters. So here, the constable is saying, I chose this because it's both of our jurisdictions. Now, that may or may not be a good decision, but the important lesson here is that where you have the negotiation matters. Sometimes it can make sense to have someone come to your place because you could show hospitality. Sometimes it might make sense to go to their office because it's a way of honoring them. Sometimes it might make sense to choose either a neutral place or a place that both of you have some affinity for or familiarity with. I think the key point here is that really good negotiators are actually thinking about the venue in a very meaningful way. So in the world of academia, I think it's pretty common practice for the lower status person to automatically go to the office of the higher status person. And that's probably not just academia, it's probably in many other situations. But I can think of a number of times when somebody who was senior to me said, I will come to your office. And it was very clear that that was done in a purposeful way to build some affiliation, to show that I consider you an equal, and to kind of warm me up. So choice of venue is important. The second question, would you like some tea? Really interesting here, right? At some level, it's just a nice question. It also, I think, can be part of negotiation in various ways. So, first of all, offering some kind of food or drink is a way of showing hospitality. It's often relational, and in that way is very positive. But of course, one could see it somewhat differently as, if you accept this tea, now you owe me something.
Oh, yeah!
I can remember years ago visiting Turkey and having a chance to go into a shop where they sold these really beautiful Turkish rugs. And within minutes of being in there, we were offered a seat and some tea. Now, one way of thinking about this is, wow, how hospitable and thoughtful. If only they did this in the United States. Another way of thinking about it was, okay, this is a setup. They're trapping us and they're going to ask us for something. My own view on this is that hospitality is worth doing, and if you get the sense that the other side is receiving it in the wrong way, just back off and move on. So part of what I think is going on here with the offer of tea is really invoking the reciprocity principle, the idea that since I've given you something, you should give me something. And that is really hardwired in human beings. Here's an example, right? Have you ever been in an airport and one of those people come up to you and they have like a carnation or a flower and they're trying to give it to you and you're like, no, thank you, no. And they persist and they persist. And then finally you take it. And when you take it, you still give them $1. You've now given them $1 for something you don't want. That's the reciprocity principle. And so in some sense, that might be playing out here in this clip. Okay, we're 2 sentences in. Let's keep watching.
Inspector, I responded to your invitation because I want us to understand each other. I'm a businessman. want to make my business successful.
And I want my city run peacefully.
Well, if the city is peaceful, business can thrive.
So let's just stop here, right? I think there's some real skill here from our gangster friend because he's trying to find some common ground. So he's actually sharing his interests, right? I want my business to be successful. That's why I'm here. And he actually gets a pretty good response, right? I want my city to be peaceful. And there's a way in which there's two sets of interests that could be in conflict, but the way they're framed, it's like not necessarily so. Like we could probably brainstorm some ways to make that happen. And so what could be very stressful, at least in this moment, kind of actually feels like there's a way of identifying what in negotiation we would call different non-competing interests. So there's one of the nice moves here is suggesting that even though we have different interests, they're non-competing and in fact linked to each other in some way.
So we're on the same side.
I think perhaps we could be.
Okay, I mean, I appreciate that this show is set somewhere in the Gilded Age in the 1920s, but let me just say, a smile never hurt anybody. I mean, these two here, I just want to offer some coaching. A little bit of smile and a little less staring might be helpful.
How can we be on the same side when I see things like this? My men found this in the bedroom of a known communist. It has your sister's name on it. It was obvious she'd been sleeping in his bed. Are you also in bed with the communists, Mr. Shelby?
I do not share their fantasy. And as for my sister, I've already dealt with the situation.
Freddie Thorne is at the very top of my list.
I'll cross him off.
So far, I want to hand it to Mr. Shelby. Even though this Birmingham constable here is frankly not handling this so well, I think he's putting Shelby on the defensive unnecessarily. What you don't see is an emotional or defensive reaction. There's a calm and cool way in which he's handling this and actually addressing the interests of the constable, right, without any concession making. And so I like the fact that even though there are these kind of aggressive questions, it's not receiving an aggressive response. And I think in most cases, unfortunately, we often see fighting words responded to with fighting words in ways that escalate.
He won't be returning to the city. I'll make him part of our deal.
What deal?
So let me just again commend Shelby here, because what he's doing is suggesting that there's a deal to be had, but expanding the set of issues in a way that he thinks will make it more yesable to the constable. So far, and I think we're only partway through this, obviously, but pretty high points for Shelby here on calmness, execution, listening. Again, a little coaching on some smiling, but I get the sense that this is his character.
You and your specials will leave my businesses alone from now on. No more raids into our territory, no more smashing up pubs, no more lifting my runners. You will turn a blind eye to all of my gambling operations. Also, I am planning an expansion onto the racetracks. I intend to do business with Billy Kimber. He runs most of the legal trackside betting outside of London. He has policemen on his payroll. I want you to put in a word with the Chief Inspector of Gloucestershire that his men should leave me alone when I make my move.
So let me just pause here because I've been giving Shelby some pretty positive marks, and I'm going to have to downgrade him. There's some demerits here now. It's not so much that he wants a lot of things that sound kind of illegal, although if we were doing a session on ethics or legality, we probably would be failing him right now. It's not even that he's asking for something, but it is the phraseology. And in negotiation, phraseology matters. When you say that you will do this and you will do that, that makes it very hard for the other side to say yes. You know, years ago, I was working with some Harvard Law School students who were trying to make some changes on the law school campus. And the way they did this is they issued a set of demands to the dean with a deadline. And then they came to my office. And I said, well, gosh, we've dug a little bit of a hole, and you're going to need to figure out a way out of this. And here's the reason why. When you make a demand, you almost always force the other side to say no. Especially in a situation like that, right? A dean can't accede to a demand. If you demand that I declare the sky blue, I probably won't do it. Because if I accede to that demand, then there's going to be another demand. So how might I coach Shelby here, right? Putting aside the legality. I might just say something like, I would be grateful if you would. Or one thing that would advance this interest and keep us on the same page is. Those things that preserve an unspoken but important interest of almost anybody on the other side, which is to feel that they have some autonomy, some actual ability to make their own decisions instead of having the decision imposed on them.
Forgive me, I don't seem to have a pen to write down this rather long list of demands.
This constable could probably use a negotiation class. I mean, I get that he is angry a little bit. So framing what sounds like demands as demands actually doesn't really help the negotiation very much. To the degree he is not appreciating Shelby's behavior here, there is a way of raising that, right? There's a way of saying, hey, you know, you've said a lot, and I want to try to be really respectful and understand what it is. And I also have a request. The way you frame this, I experience as a demand, and that makes it harder for me to actually hear what you're saying. In other words, somehow talking about how you're experiencing behavior is very different than calling something out as a demand. Because as soon as you've done that, you again raise the stakes again in an unhelpful way. And it invites a fight about whether it's a demand or not a demand.
And what do I get in return?
I have what you're looking for. I have the guns.
What guns?
We're not here to play games.
Wait.
Okay, I don't know this show very well, but it's very clear that the constable, again, makes another dumb move by playing dumb on guns. And I kind of like the fact that Shelby takes him at his word. If you know what I'm talking about, I'm leaving. Because if the constable really doesn't know what he's talking about, then Shelby will leave and there's actually no deal to be made. But in fact, right, if Shelby's right in his preparation, then this constable is going to call Shelby back. And as soon as that happens, all of the leverage is in Shelby's hands. And this goes to a really important lesson in negotiation, which is just being transparent. Playing dumb doesn't help you because if someone calls your bluff, you've just lost your credibility.
"25 loose machine guns, 50 carbines, 10,000 rounds of ammunition, all in a crate bound for Libya, stolen from the BSA factory proofing bay. I'm guessing they sent you to Birmingham to get those guns back? Well, it's me that has them. I have left word with men I trust that if I am taken into police custody for whatever reason, those guns will be shipped to Liverpool. From there, they will be sent directly to Belfast and sold to the Irish Republican Army. All your good work in Ireland will be undone. Each stolen weapon is numbered and marked. If I sell them to the IRA, it won't be long before Mr. Churchill finds out. I imagine you got into enough trouble over the burning of the King's photographs. That was just a taster. If those guns reach Belfast, your life in the Force is over. When I've achieved what I've set out to achieve, I will let you know where to find the guns. You'll be a hero. You'll probably get a medal. I'm a fair man. It's a fair offer. Do we have a deal? I need an answer. Right now.
Very well.
Okay. There is a lot to break down here. So, first thing I see is this really interesting, there's a really interesting way of breaking this down, right? Is this primarily a threat? You could say yes, but I actually think it's a little more skillful than that. It is a presentation of both a stick and a carrot. And in negotiation, as a best practice, I actually want to focus mostly on carrots, meaning I want to find ways to get someone to say yes because it's appealing to their interests. I want to minimize things that are perceived as punishments or disincentives. This here has a bit of both in it. But again, I'm just going to credit Shelby here. He kind of starts off with the threat piece. That is, if I'm taken into custody, these guns are going to end up in Belfast, and you are probably going to be unemployed. But then he quickly turns it into, oh, and by the way, if I achieve my goals, you're actually going to be a hero because you're going to be able to reclaim these guns. And so I think about in negotiation, as much as possible, I want to focus on offering carrots, and yet I do want to know what possible sticks are available to me. Second thing I want to say here, which I think is really interesting, is Shelby says, I need an answer right now. He is taking advantage of something in the psychological literature that's called the scarcity principle. There's something on offer, and it's very good for you, but it won't be available tomorrow, it won't be available next week, it won't even be available in 2 hours. You need to decide now. And the scarcity principle, it has shown, tends to be more likely to elicit people to say yes because they want something that they think they otherwise can't have. That is why, for example, the President's Day sale lasts only till Tuesday. Or you get 25% off if you're in by 9 p.m. Is there something magical at 9:30 that changes the value of the good? No. But the fact that we say the offer ends or explodes makes it more interesting. And so this kind of use of a scarcity principle in an extremely effective way. So looking on this, I have to confess, I feel slightly guilty saying that this guy who's a gangster has used a bunch of really effective negotiation moves. But I really think he has used a bunch of negotiation moves. Now, what he hasn't done, just to be clear, is he's not invited any kind of brainstorming. He hasn't explored whether there are more value-creating opportunities that might be amenable. And he's really exploited something called the principal-agent tension here. That is, he's appealed to the interests of the individual constable, even though those interests are not broadly aligned with the broader interests of the crown. But this exploitation of the principal-agent tension ends up working to his advantage here. So what are some examples of offers that maybe you've ended up saying yes to, and then in retrospect realized it was only because of the way it was phrased, or because of the deadline, or because of some external pressure that you felt? Drop those into the comments. And if you want to make sure that you don't fall victim to that again, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Of course, like this video and ring the bell so you'll be notified every single time there's new videos with new negotiation learnings. I'm Bob Bordone with the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. Thanks for watching. Okay, it's not difficult to keep watching. Click, click.